What is up, guys? It's Mike from Goalkeeper Guidance, bringing a very exciting video to you today to talk about the 80-20 rule applied to goalkeeping. Now, what is the 80-20 rule, or otherwise known as the Pareto principle? It states that 80% of outcomes or outputs result from 20% of all causes or inputs for any given event. Now, this is a rule that I've been familiar with for a while, talking about habits, everyday actions, things of the sort. And I wanted to apply this to goalkeeping because I find it super interesting. So I went into Grok and basically asked it to pull me what actions goalkeepers will be facing most in games and how we can use that data to apply and structure our trainings. Now, in our Goalkeepers Union community here, which by the way, guys, we have a phenomenal community for goalkeepers. We offer all sorts of resources from online training, a great support system, network, map where you can see where all of our members are located. Go in here, show you guys. Got all types of really cool things. Discounts on gloves will make you a highlight video CV. We have a college recruiting guide, which I did another video on. So, anyways, you can start a 7-day free trial. Click the link in the description. Let me know what you think. Would love to have you in there. Join the family. So, we got this complete goalkeeper training program here. And right here is where I'm talking about the 80-20 rule in goalkeeping. Shit. What is up, guys? It's Mike from Goalkeeper Guidance. Really excited to bring you this video today talking about the 80-20 rule, or rather known as Pareto's principle, and how we can apply that to goalkeeping. Now, what this rule states is that basically 80% of your outputs are going to come from 20% of your inputs. And I wanted to see how does this apply to goalkeeping and how can we structure our training programs to ultimately get us most prepared for the actions or the outputs that we're most likely to execute and or see in a game. If you're not sure what you're looking at here, this is our community for goalkeepers. It's called the Goalkeepers Union. Basically anything that you need in your goalkeeping journey, whether it's college recruitment, film analysis, training programs, we've got everything, even discounts on gloves, save you a bit of money. And at the end of the day, it's just a really cool community of goalkeepers, goalkeeper coaches, and just everyone that loves goalkeeping getting together, talking goalkeeping, supporting each other in their journeys. We do offer a 7-day free trial. Click the link in the description. Would love to see you in there. So let's get into this 80-20 rule. We go into this complete goalkeeper training program here. So I went in and I asked Grok and I said, what are the most common goalkeeper actions in games from the top five footballing leagues? And what it brought up was really interesting. The first one, distribution. As we know, the game is headed in that direction. If not, it's already there. And any goalkeeper that plays at the high level has to be good with their feet, both feet for that matter. And as we can see here, on the average frequency per 90 minutes, the goalkeeper is expected to execute 30 to 50 passes. Now, of course, some passes are just simple, easy, 5, 10 yard, switching the ball from one center back to the next. But other times there are going to be opportunities, moments where you are going to have to clip a ball into the number nine's foot, chip, a striker and sort of lob it over to your outside back, whatever the case may be. Now, what this tells us is that this is where a majority of our training should be focused because it is going to have the highest frequency of what we might face in a game. And now this is not just saying, simple passing, warming up, whatever. No, this is training that needs to be structured. It needs to be real. It needs to be live. And this section here, what I have, what a training session should look like. We talk about game realistic scenarios, positive environment to learn, to make mistakes. Mistakes, particularly in training, are going to be the best way for you to improve and get better. Drills that force the goalkeeper to remain active, nothing that's ever too stationary, as you would sort of imagine it in a game. That goes in hand of saying as well, drills that include actions after the save, for example, after you take a cross, hitting a side volley to start the counter attack. So this is not an extensive list. It could go on forever, honestly, but this gives you a good idea as to, what to look for in a training session, and you need to figure out what your ideology is when it comes to training. Every goalkeeper, based on their characteristics and who they are, is going to need different stuff in training. But for me, this is what a good training session includes. So going back to this 80-20 rule, the next thing we move on to is shot stopping. Now, on the average frequency per 90 minutes, the goalkeepers will face anywhere from 3 to 5 shots. Now, of course, we know this. We are goalkeepers. Our goal is to keep the ball out of the net. And unfortunately, I think you've seen a shift away from that. I think goalkeepers are focused on a lot of other things except keeping the ball out of the net, when in reality, that is the most important thing. Now, of course, when we look at the distribution, we look at the shot stopping, one pass, is not equivalent to one shot, but a majority of our actions as goalkeepers is going to come from that distribution piece. But then the next step, if we take away the distribution, shot stopping is number one, and it remains the core of what our job is as a goalkeeper. And again, shot stopping is not, taking an easy volley or taking easy ball from the floor. It's very realistic shots that are going to replicate and mimic what you're going to see in the game. What Grok told me, which I found was very interesting, is looking at, how many saves per game goalkeepers are making, as we talked about, as well as looking at high expected goals. So goals that are, close range, 8 to 12 yards, deflections. There's something really interesting that Emmy Martinez talked about a little while ago, where he likes to train deflections because it's what you're going to see in a game, and he wants to work on trying to keep himself as big as possible in case those deflections do happen. So, how can we replicate these ideas into our training sessions? Moving on to the next one, we've got cross handling, which I found really interesting. You might face 5 to 10 crosses per game, but you might only actually need to intervene 1 to 2 times. And goalkeepers get very nervous around crossing. They really struggle with timing. But I think what's interesting here is that you might only have to intervene 1 or 2 times. So I hope this gives you confidence knowing that, okay, for those 1 or 2 crosses, knowing and believing in yourself that you can handle it. And again, in your training sessions, it should not just be easy crosses where you don't have any pressure. It should be different types of services, whipped balls, floated balls, in swinger, out swinger, and you should be dealing with traffic, striker making a run, particularly the higher levels you get. Strikers are going to be able to meet that ball higher up. They're going to be making runs across the first post, and you as a goalkeeper have to be able to deal with that. We then move on to 1v1s and sweeping. Of course, 1v1s aren't going to happen as much, but they are going to have a big impact as to goals conceded. And so, can we work on 1v1s? Now, the technique of 1v1s, I think everyone's going to have a different thing that works for them, and you have to figure out what is best for you based on your characteristics as a goalkeeper. But the only way to get better at 1v1s is just to see as many as possible. Then we go into sweeping. Sweeping was something that Neuer made obviously really famous, and some other goalkeepers. Honestly, I don't see it as much anymore. I think that you look at, how often distribution and keeping the ball and, slow build up has become in the game, and so the demand for a sweeper keeper maybe isn't as high as it once used to be. But of course, it is something that we do have to have in our bag when called upon if we are playing a high line or playing against a team that we know likes to play the ball over the top. I honestly have never worked with a goalkeeper coach that's worked on sweeping. I always like to do it in the rain when there's bad conditions and you can slide and deal with different types of balls, bouncing off of a slick surface and, having to take one off the shin or whatever the case may be. So looking at dealing with, these in training as well too. And of course, some sessions they might just be crossing sessions, or other sessions it might just be 1v1 sessions. But this rule and this idea is to help you focus on how can you get the best bang for your buck. A lot of coaches don't have a lot of time, goalkeepers in general, and some goalkeepers don't even have coaching, right? This is why we have this training program. That is why we offer our online coaching service. But if you only have 10 or 15 minutes when it comes to getting warmed up before you go into play small-sided, let's have the majority of the session focused around distribution and shot stopping. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. I find this part of goalkeeping really interesting now that we have the technology, being able to take advantage and use these ideas to structure and guide our training sessions. And this is something that if you do film your games, you have the technology to where you can start to capture trends in your own games. If you're just a high school goalkeeper, of course, there's not going to be a lot of data around what you might see in those games. But over the course of a season, particularly in high school, because you're playing so many games, and of course, the games that, maybe you're winning 8-0 might not be so applicable. So you do have to apply that context in regards to that. But ultimately, start to track how many crosses are you seeing, how many passes are you making per game, how many 1v1s are you facing, and then you can start to get a general trend of what you should be focusing on the most in your trainings. So if you have any questions, drop them in the comments. If you want to join the community, like I said, click the link in our bio. Would love to have you in there. Would love to work with you and love to help you achieve your goalkeeping goals. All right, guys, that's everything from me. Drop a like, subscribe, and keep an eye out for some more videos. All the best. Thanks.